Okay, thank you. So this is actually a two-part talk. I'm going to start, and then Todd's going to talk about some stuff. So this is really things that we do as Path and OSG for you, campus contributors. Just kind of thinking about why, where are we, what are we doing this for? We're helping campuses share compute and storage capacity with researchers, and this is, as Kevin emphasized, this is to reduce barriers to discovery for all of science. And as Frank mentioned, we're trying to help all the campuses. So if you go back to the Minds We Need thing, small campuses, large campuses, medium campuses, teaching campuses, research campuses, whether you got a CC Star award, an MRI award, if you're a minority serving institution, whatever your classification scheme, we don't really care. We want to work with you. So as I mentioned, this comes in two parts. I want to emphasize, though, that tomorrow morning, there's what's called the CC Star track on the program. That's really open to everyone. It's not limited to CC Star folks. And we're going to talk a lot more about and have a much more interactive discussion about all of the stuff that I'm talking about now, and including the dashboard that Todd's going to talk about. Okay, so just before I dive into slides, show of hands, how many people are here representing a campus that is contributing or thinking about contributing capacity to either the OS pool or the OSDF or something like that? Okay, great, cool. I couldn't see all the hands online, but I'm hoping there's some there too. Okay, so if you are just getting started in this process, you think you want to be part of this national or at least a regional infrastructure, basically we are here to help you get started with that process. And so for proposals, and again, I want to make it nice and orange. Please remember that the next CC Star deadline is mid-October. It is not too early to start. You go home after this week, and if you're interested, start working on this right away, because it does take a while. And Kevin said, you have to be able to describe how it is that you are going to do this sharing process. And so we can help prepare you for that. We're not going to write it for you, but we can help you know what you need to know so that you can write that and do a good job with that. And also, we will provide that letter of collaboration that Kevin mentioned. In general, though, we can help with things like planning a new cluster, expanding a cluster, whether that's CC Star or otherwise. We can help just with the planning part as the strategy program area now in CC Star. We can get down into the weeds of what this process looks like, and even to the extent that we can offer some advice on hardware and software configurations that work well with us. So once you're ready to contribute, we can meet to actually discuss what your goals are and then make a plan for how that's going to work. This is just a short meeting, I think. Then we work with you together to actually do the integration. We don't just sort of leave you off on your own to figure this out. And really our goal, one of our goals, is to try to minimize your effort in getting set up with this. We don't want to make this yet another burden on your time. One of the ways that we do so is by offering to host some of the key services that sort of are the interface. So on the compute side, that's the CE, the compute entry point, and on the storage side, that's the origin. We have documentation, of course, and we'll support you throughout this process. I did want to note that I am the OSG campus coordinator, and if for whatever reason you're not getting help through the normal channels, you can always reach out to me, and my email address comes a little bit later. Okay, and once you are contributing, we're there with you through the whole process, right? So we do our own monitoring. We'll maybe have some suggestions for you of what kind of monitoring to do locally in your campus. We help with accounting, so you can see what you're contributing and who that's going to, and that's really going to be the focus of Todd's section or part next. We continue to communicate with you, with the whole community. This was the theme of Christina's talk yesterday morning. And of course, ongoing support. And I just want to put, this slide is not about if you're contributing. I want to be very clear about that, but just a reminder that if you have researchers on your campus who could make use of the services we offer. So the OS pool, OSDF, that kind of thing. Please point them in the direction of our research facilitation team and get them started today, right? You don't have to be a contributor. This is the really, really important part here I want to stress. You do not need to be a contributor to have folks on your campus to start benefiting from these services that we already offer. So get them started as soon as you identify them. And I don't need to walk through all this because Christina, I think, kind of already talked about this stuff. Okay, and then generally speaking, how can we improve these services? Please, as a community, as individuals, come and tell us what you think we could do better. Some suggestions here on ways that you could do that. We're all here, so reach out to us now while we're here in Madison. And again, I want to plug the CC Star track, which is, again, open to all tomorrow morning. There's my email address if you want to reach out to me directly. We have, during the school year more, we have weekly campus meetups. That's a chance to just come and talk with us and with each other. And you can see the details are at that link. And then there's our general support email address. Okay, I just want to give 3 quick examples of campuses that I've worked with in the past year who've had some, I think, interesting interactions with us. So I'm going to start with the University of Montana. They integrated their compute cluster from CC Star last fall. And as part of this process, they learned, I think for the first time really, about HTC and how we can help researchers at scale. And we showed them one way, not the new one, but we showed them one way where they can see kind of who they're helping with their capacity. Then in the spring, they reached out to us because they were setting up, for the first time, they were setting up an event on campus for their own researchers to come and learn about research computing opportunities. So they wanted them to use this new cluster that they had, but because they learned about high throughput computing, they were also able to share with these researchers that there are other options beyond their campus borders available. And so they asked if we could help with that. They gave us generously an hour of their one-day schedule, and Rachel Lombardi, wherever she is, actually went to Missoula and helped with that. So researchers got kind of a mixed view or a balanced view of what was out there as options. And that was about 50 attendees, both in person and online. And we've already seen a couple possible count requests coming through to us just from that. So that's great. Great Plains Network, I noticed that on the list of top contributors from the year that they were, I think, the number 5. So their older award was a CC Star Compute in 2020, but really that ended up being a regional computing system with nodes at 15 different institutions, and all of those were then contributing to the OS pool. And this influenced the CC Star program and in particular the development of the regional computing program area. It also, and I think this kind of goes on with this discussion that was just happening, it also led some of the contributing institutions to look at the systems that they already had on their campuses and say, hey, we could share some more. And they did this outside of any CC Star program requirement or anything like that. They just saw the benefit of doing that and added more. More recently, they had a press release this spring about their GP engine, which is the follow-on project to GP Argo, noting that so some of the institutions of GPN had contributed significantly to the NRAO, which we heard about yesterday, and so we're following on one of NRAO's press releases. So again, they're seeing the value of contributing to these national scale research projects, and your campus could be doing that too. Michigan State, I worried about putting this, I talked to Tom at Michigan State, he's cool with this, but it's not, I don't want to give the impression that everything is perfect and smooth and wonderful and sunshine and bunnies. So they did their integration in December, and it was not super smooth at first. So one of the requirements that we have is that worker nodes have outbound network connectivity. And so we actually started the integration process and very quickly discovered that even though they thought they had outbound network connectivity, it wasn't there and it wasn't working. And they actually ultimately discovered a bug in their software-defined networking that prevented that. So they had to do some changes to their network to allow this. Now this helps their own cluster, but it makes possible the integration. Got them up and running, that was great. Then the holidays happened and I was kind of checking on things and I noticed that while they were contributing plenty, we weren't using it very well. Now this is our problem. So if you're contributing capacity, then it becomes our job to make sure that we're using that. We're getting researchers to use that. And so that's why I was checking and I noticed it wasn't going well. And it turned out that our detection of the singularity or aptainer system wasn't working quite right. So the researcher payloads that needed it couldn't match there, couldn't run there. And so they were seeing far fewer payloads than they ought to. So between us and them, we debugged this for a little while and we got it working. So you can see some numbers there. They were maybe doing about 60 jobs per day prior and about 170 jobs per day after. So it really did make a change. And utilization, once it improved, then campus staff were like, hey, great, this is all working. Let's go ahead and scale up the contributions. And then there were sunshine and bunnies. Okay, so why contribute capacity? I think that the big one is the one that I highlighted with GPN here is, you can be part of something much bigger than just your own campus. You can contribute to these big projects and a whole list of them there and really contribute to great research that's going on. By learning a little bit about HTC and how it works, you are in a better position then to advise your own researchers on when it might be appropriate for them to use high throughput computing and how to get access to it, i.e. the OS pool. Generally, you're connecting with the national community of people who are doing this stuff. We're all in academia. We're maybe unlike industry, we have no real deep competition with each other. We tend to be sort of more all in this together. So by sharing information, you can help other campuses or other campuses can help you improve your own local offerings, period. Maybe slightly less exciting, but I have heard people say that this is important. You can get more use out of the capacity that you have. So if you've purchased a fair amount of capacity, thinking about the peak of your needs, you're not maybe always using that. It's kind of embarrassing to go to your campus leadership and say, wow, we're using 40% of our capacity. You can use us to use the rest. We're happy to fill that role. And of course, you can do this to fulfill a promise that you made in a grant proposal. Okay, those are my thoughts. Todd is going to come up and start the technical transition here. I can probably take a question or so, just long enough to get Todd going, and then both of us will take questions at the end. Okay, if you think of anything, we can answer questions at the end. And of course, again, there's the Wednesday sessions tomorrow. There it is. Yay.
What's laser?
Yeah, I guess you can use the laser, but you gotta turn it on. Well, that.
All right.
Oh, yeah, he's gonna use the laser. Yeah.
Okay. Good morning. So part 2 here, I am going to talk about the HTCondor-CE dashboard. Don't worry, you will learn as we go what I am talking about. So you just heard Tim talk about why you should contribute, a campus should contribute capacity. But beyond the why, what about the who? So, if I contribute capacity from my campus, Uncle Todd's college, who's benefiting from it, right? What science am I helping? Furthermore, how effectively is my contribution being used? At Uncle Todd's college, if I contribute 500 CPUs every day, or is only one CPU being used, or 2 CPUs, or all 500 being used? And the answer here, the Zoom keeps popping stuff up, is the HTCondor-CE for my campus knows all this information. And if only there was a web page I could look at that would tell me about what the CE knows and communicate it to me. So before we get into the web page, how many of you, by show of hands, know what an HTCondor-CE is? Very good. How many have no idea? Don't be shy. There's a few. Okay. So in 60 seconds or less, because I like technical stuff, I'm going to talk about a CE, but I'm not going to spend more than 60 seconds or Marone is probably going to yell at me. So say I have a contributing, there's a contributing campus, Uncle Todd's College, and I happen to have a Slurm cluster there. There's probably a Slurm front end sitting in front of that cluster. And this is where people, an SSH service runs, and my users at the college would SSH into my front end and submit jobs to run on my cluster. Well, there is also a service called the HTCondor-CE. And instead of users SSHing to it, organizations from the OSG consortium that want capacity, such as the OS pool and others, would come to the CE, request capacity from your Slurm cluster, and the CE passes that, delegates that request along to Slurm, and Slurm eventually decides to run jobs, and the capacity is then donated. Now, as Tim mentioned, many of you don't worry about running a CE on your campus because OSG campus services will happily host that for you in the cloud. So they're hosting it in their Kubernetes cloud, their whatever. And then all that you see at your campus is the CE doesn't SSH into your front end, just like a user would, talks to Slurm or maybe Condor, PBS, whatever, and gets capacity that way. So as part of the HTCondor-CE activity, we changed the CE not just to get the requested capacity from your scheduler, Slurm, but also to monitor those contributed resources once they start running, and then store metrics about what happens, and monitor the health of the CE itself. Is the CE running? Can it not SSH into the front end? Is Slurm dead? Is Condor dead? That doesn't happen, but and then we created a lightweight web page to show what's happening. And we wanted to keep it lightweight because just like when you point your browser at your Linksys router at home, you don't want to have Grafana and Graphite and all this lots of dependencies sitting on your router. We wanted something small and simple in JavaScript. So this is what the overview page of the dashboard looks like. And the graphs at the top talk about, is your contributed capacity being utilized well? So for instance, up here, we have CPUs contributed in the past week. That's the red line here. And then the blue represents CPUs that actually get allocated to a science project. So you can see here, I might be like, I'm donating, 550 CPUs, but there's only 300 CPUs actually allocated to a project. that doesn't seem like very effective use to me. What's going on is there's more than just CPUs involved. There's also memory and there's also disk space, right? So imagine Uncle Todd's College contributes a machine that has 256 cores, but only has 2 gigs of RAM, right? Odds are a lot of those cores are going to sit around pretty idle, right? And you're going to see something like this. So we came up with this notion of a basic computing unit, or a BCU. And this is basically 1 core, 4 gigs, and 4 gigs of RAM and 4 gigs of disk. And if you look at the basic computing unit, you can see, oh, it's actually doing much better than it seems over here. And this is probably because of, the example I gave, machines that have more CPUs than they have memory or disk. So then moving down on the overview, we get into who am I helping? So here we have a graph of the number of projects, the number of organizations or campuses, and the number of fields of science per day that we helped out. And then we get into the big pie graph that Kevin likes of what are these projects, and we list them all out. But if I have a little bit of time, we can go to a live demo because I'm a glutton for punishment. That's still PowerPoint. All right. I don't know, it shows up here.
Todd, why'd you break it?
It's showing up on this screen.
Oh, no, that was switching to the podium PC. Well, I guess we could.
Yeah, why don't we do that? I mean, let's just get something going.
Yeah, here. Not ideal, but.
Well, that is crazy. Should I just unplug it and plug it back in again and see?
We're just showing the doing now.
Okay.
There might be somebody.
Okay. So it happens to be a list of all the hosted CEs and their health. So I mentioned we do health monitoring. Good, obviously everything's hunky-dory. Fair is maybe, it's still working, but maybe it's a little overloaded or something's going on. Poor is something is dead. And we show in here, a description of each one. If we sort by health, there's even the scheduler that the campus is using. And I would like to point out all the Condor scheduler ones, none of them are in poor health. They're all good or better. But if we look at some other schedulers, we have a few poor health, and as Greg Thane's mother would say, well, of course Condor's working fine. Okay. So we can scroll down some of these facilities. Some are small colleges, some are big. Rhodes College. Anybody know where Rhodes College resides? I think it's Tennessee somewhere. So why don't we click on their CE? And here we have their dashboard. Right at this moment, they are serving 3 science projects from 3 different organizations. It looks like they're kind of CPU bound. And of course, it has all the usual mouse over stuff that you'd expect. And it looks like in the past week, they have served 16 different projects.
Todd, can you go back to the top one? What is also important is to see that the contributing goes down and then comes back up, right? On July 7, it went down to 0 and then came up again. That shows the autonomy of the campus in deciding how much of their capacity to allocate to the OS pool.
Right.
So it's not a straight line.
Yep, their local users may have been using all their capacity. People can come in and say, well, okay, we've got, what's this project about? Or this plant biology thing. And you can click on it and it takes you pretty much to the same same screen that Kevin was showing before, and you can read all about what this project is about, who's the PI, what field of science they're in, so on and so forth. But of course, I want to go to Wisconsin. One last piece I wanna show is when you go on a graph, you have this little full screen or edit or download data. So if you click on download data, you get a spreadsheet of all the data in the graph back, so you can do whatever you want with it. If you click on full screen, hopefully you get a full screen shot of that graph that's useful for kiosks. Maybe you want to advertise how much your, Uncle Todd's College, maybe we'll put in the union a kiosk showing how much we're helping. And you can also click on this edit and change the graph around. And again, this is all just at your browser. There's nothing stored in the back end. So I am going to change the title of this and say groups served per day by Uncle Todd. All right, very good. This is a column chart. Maybe I'll try a bar chart. And you can click on this syntax reference here, and there's all kinds of ways you can slice and dice and graph the data. I'm going to switch it to a bar. Ooh, that doesn't look very good. It's kind of patriotic, almost July 4th-y, but I think we'll go back to a column. Oh. And sorry about that. Okay. And then there's this button, copy HTML for this graph to the clipboard. I'm going to do that. Click. And now, for the first time since before Cole has been born, we are going to modify Uncle Todd's homepage. Literally untouched since the 90s, and just for you, I'm gonna change it. So here it is. But say this is, my department page. This is the HTML for said web page. I don't know if anybody can read that. Index.html. Look at my handcrafted HTML from the 90s. But all I'm going to do is insert and then paste from what the dashboard, the mess of junk it spat out. We'll save that. We'll reload this page. And look at that. There is group served by Uncle Todd right in his page. But seriously, you could put whatever graphs you want about how you're contributing to science in on your department page, your campus page, your college page, and not only to feel good about your contribution, but hopefully to inspire other groups on your campus saying, wait a minute, these science projects are getting how many resources? How do I get some of that, right? So with that, I'm done.
Thank you. Yeah.